All right, I've got one spot open for the premium SMT newsletter. If you want to take that spot, email me. I'll put my email address in the description below. Going to look at the metals. There is a possibility that we've started the move down into an intermediate cycle low, which is your buying opportunity, but probably isn't going to be done for another week or two. So this first chart is silver. You can see silver has dropped and closed below the 10-week moving average, and the 10-week moving average is rolling over and turning down. So that suggests that silver is in the declining phase of the intermediate cycle low. GDX has also closed below the 10-week moving average and is starting to flatten out. Also getting pretty close to being oversold on the 5-week RSI now that we are in the advancing phase of a new 8-year cycle, and you can see that that is the case here by the embedded condition of the RSI, and I'll show you gold here in a minute. We would expect that RSI would, once it gets oversold, it wouldn't stay oversold very long, so 1 or 2 more down weeks should be enough to push this to oversold, and then we would probably start we would expect to start the advancing phase of another intermediate cycle. Now let's take a look at gold. All right, gold is a little bit stronger than silver and miners in that it has not closed below the 10-week moving average. You can see what I was talking about here in the embedded condition of the RSI, extremely embedded, heavily overbought. That is characteristic of the advancing phase of a new a new multi-year 8-year cycle. So I think this was our 8-year cycle low right here. Came a little bit early on year 7, which is not unusual. And we're now in the advancing phase of a new 8-year cycle. This is during this 8-year cycle, gold should break out above these all-time highs. And I think we're probably going to get our bubble phase that'll take gold somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 before this 8-year cycle tops. But right now we're trying to decide whether or not the metals are starting a move down into an intermediate decline. The miners and silver suggest that it is. Gold itself hasn't really given us all of the requirements, and the first one, it would need to close below this 10-week moving average before I could say for sure. It is possible that gold recovers, comes up, tests maybe that 2,000, or maybe even test the all-time highs here, and we get a divergence in RSI. That's very often how these intermediate cycles top. So even though silver and miners are suggesting we have started the declining phase of the intermediate cycle for metals, I'm not going to say definitively until I see more signs from gold that gold is also starting the declining phase of an intermediate cycle. But we've taken profits on most of our positions, and we're kind of in wait and see mode here. We're going to see what happens next week before we maybe try and pick a bottom. If a few things happen next week, which I've gone over in detail in the weekend report, which if you want to take that one spot that's open, you can read that report, see what I'm looking for, to tell me whether or not we want to try and pick a bottom in a first daily cycle here, or whether we want to stay on the sidelines for a couple more weeks and wait for a final intermediate cycle low before we jump back into metals trades. But for right now, we've sold all of our leverage, most of our unleveraged positions, and we're in wait and see mode this probably for the better part of this month to get some idea as to whether or not we are in the declining phase, or if we're going to bounce here off of this 10-week moving average and then get another leg higher, but one that has a divergence in this RSI. So again, one spot open for the SMT Premium newsletter. If you want to take that spot, send me an email.